Hello, everyone. I'm here with Nate, who is an ENFP, and we are going to discuss a lot of fun things, mostly NE and NI and ENFPs and ENFJs. Why don't you introduce yourself, Nate?
Thanks, Megan. Well, long time no see. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So my name is Nate. I am an ENFP. I do fumble a lot. Let's put it in because we did discuss that for 2 seconds,
You're
but
doing great.
we're gonna push forward. Okay, we're gonna see if I have enough SE inside of me to just make it happen. But yeah, like it's a little quick, short introduction for me is that I guess like I'm the same as the other folks who kind of got into typology pretty early.
He's the same as everyone else you've ever
The same
met.
as everybody else, right?
Because he's not a type 4 ENFP. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we will get to that. Let's put it that way.
Type 4 ENFPs are different than everyone else. Type 7s are the same.
More like my 3 fix. How about that? Like what difference being apart from the group? What? But yeah, like I got a little bit into it because I was super interested in why my brain thinking patterns wasn't the same as everybody else. And I thought that was really interesting. And it started off kind of like a negative thing where, why am I so different? It's awkward. It's weird. But then, as you kept reading through it and you start studying and then you start kind of creating your own kind of conclusions, you build up a little repertoire that you have all this wording now. Like now whenever I describe myself, it's like, oh, I like to speak in a lot of metaphors. I like to speak in a lot of comparing one emotional consistency to another. I would make random comparisons like that. May not have a lot of logical sense. At least that's how I perceive it to be. But as long as I feel like it makes the point across, that's kind of where I'm at in terms of my goals when it comes to talking to people. But yeah, and I don't know. And you and I, Megan, like we met through Kat, right?
Yes.
We met through another ENFJ.
So on Twitter. So what is your username if anyone wants to follow you on Twitter?
It's at Kiddorasa. So that's KIDDORASA, which has a very FI base as to where I got that name. But
and some of you guys, if you're in my Facebook group, you might have seen that he did a YouTube video before that I shared in there. If you aren't already in my Facebook group, all of that will be linked below. But so yeah. How long have you been interested in type, and did you sort of start with Myers-Briggs and then get into socionics, or did you start with Enneagram, or what was that journey like for you?
Actually, it was definitely MBTI first. It was definitely during the grade 10 in high school in the planning class. And it was, albeit it was the Simpsons MBTI personality test.
Oh my God.
It was so funny because actually there was a funny story about that. I got ENFP, surprisingly so, but I saw Krusty the Clown. I was like, hey, I like the clown. I'm gonna pick him. So I presented my position in the presentation as ENTJ because that was his person. And I went with it. And the thing is, I never thought of it after that. I was just like, you know what? This is fun. This is like a gimmick. It's cute because I didn't really believe that I was destined to be only to study and teach psychology. Like that was kind of a weird kind of angle that they were coming off of. It's like, oh, you should be into the arts. And I'm like, sure, I could be into the arts. I mean, isn't everybody into the arts at some point in their life? Like when they're interested in something, like why is it that the only thing? And then after that, post high school, I took a break. I took a break from the whole typology studies. I got into more trying to find a job, trying to deal with all the mundane SI details of the world. And then it hit 2013.
We're the same age, right? You're 24.
Yes. Yes, we are actually. Yeah,
great,
you're right.
Great age to be.
To be super obsessed with brain patterns, right?
Well, you've heard the song "Nobody Likes You When You're 23." Right?
Oh, really? I thought I was just kind of like just going through the motions.
There's some song, I don't even remember what it is, but the lyric, nobody likes you when you're 23. But apparently that doesn't happen when you're 24. Everyone likes you.
I used to celebrate when I turned 22 because there was like a few songs that was named 22. Even though they were kind of sad songs. I think some of them was kind of like, she doesn't have goals in her life, so she's 20. I'm like, I don't relate to this song, but I kind of.
Of course, the Taylor Swift song.
And then there's that one,
yeah,
which is like hanging out with hipsters or something like that?
Yeah,
pretty fun.
Yeah, I didn't have a song for 24.
Even though my favorite number is 24.
So it is.
It is. I just have a fixation for 24. I try to find some kind of logical way to explain it.
I'll have to look into numerology and see if there's some sort of significance to it.
Could be. I don't know, right? I'd love to see what it would be like. But yeah, I recently got into super heavy back into typology around what year is it now? 2019. So 17.
Mm-hmm.
It was a while since I got back. Let's say 2013, 2014, I was more just cruising around, just personality cafe, reading forums, all that stuff, because I was in a relationship with somebody, and it was really odd because we weren't getting along. Like, we didn't have the same, like, I thought we just didn't get each other on the wavelength, even though we were both intuitives, and I was wondering why.
Yeah.
And I think, and the thing is she's an INTJ. So it was me and EDOM, her and IDOM. And I think, and it bothered me because, we were friends at the same time too. Like, we wanted to get along with each other. Like, our goal was, to enjoy each other's company at some point too. So it was kind of off that we would be on each other's backs and not, I think the disagreement had to make sense to me. It couldn't just be something stupid. Like, brain patterns didn't work. I'm like, that's not good enough, right? Like, you have to at least have a proper way of explaining this process.
And it wasn't like you can just say that you were trying harder than her or something. Like, you could tell that you're both putting in the effort, and you're like, well, what is this obstacle then?
And it really was like a kind of like two thing going, always missing. Like, we just could not get on the wavelength, which is partly why I have such a thing with INJs. Like, I have a hard time like getting along with them and getting on their conversation.
I feel like your NE really is off the charts in a just different way, like in a good way. But
I sure hope it's a good way.
it definitely in a good way. But even like sometimes when we're talking, you'll say a concept that to me seems unrelated, and I have to go like, wait, what? Like and there's even been times, and we haven't known each other that long, but just trying to talk about a concept, I felt like, whoa, where did you go with that?
Yeah, because I don't know, like, I would say I have consumed so much ridiculous amount of information because my NE is like you said, like, so wild. So when I make references, I make references to things that no one else has read, and I can't expect, I can't blame anybody though, because who's to say to have read what I've read, right? You can't have, you're not a mind reader.
Do you think that you forget to source things?
No, because I can actually tell you where I got them. Like, I know where a lot of my ideas come from. It's just that it's just gonna take work for the other person. I'd be like, oh, by the way, Community episode 3, like season 2 episode 3, timestamp 23 point something. Like that's the exact point of the reference.
Do you think people don't want to hear those references?
My friends get tired of it. They think that I'm just I have a nerdy moments, they think. But to me, it's just another way of speaking. Like, it's just a part of my language. It's so hard to find ways to communicate to somebody, especially for the types who has to visualize it like presently. And if they're not in the moment to see it, they won't get where I'm coming from. So if I watch it at some kind of media outlet, I would just pull that video out and be like, this is what caused me to have that feeling. And I hope you understand it from there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting.
So it's a lot of pulling sources everywhere. And you could see too with how I'm moving too, like I'm pulling my ideas everywhere else.
Yeah. And I can tell that you have read and consumed a lot, and that I feel like you say unique things that are sort of combinations of multiple things, or like your inspiration is coming from multiple different angles.
It's very bouncy, I would say. Like, it's
yes,
for anyone who wants to really see, I guess, any in motion, like this would be any in motion, because you ask me something, I'll relate it to something else, bring that in, but only if you ask me with the starting word. I can't just dump things, kind of thing.
Yeah,
I mean, I will dump things, but it'll just be vomit, and that's not good.
Yeah, and I guess something I think would be interesting to talk about here is, how is that different than my like demonstrative NE and socionics? Because I can do NE, but a lot of you guys know on this channel that NPs are some of my all-time favorite people, and I'm kind of surrounded by NPs, but at the same time, it definitely takes work to understand NE and SI users. Like, I don't ever really feel with my NFP or NTP friends like that we're on the same wavelength, but I can feel like, oh wow, we're working toward the same goal, or oh, we have the same values, or we have the same opinions, and oh wow, we're helping each other with that. So it doesn't mean that we'll never like it's just a different way of connection that maybe you feel with NPs as well, like same wavelength, but like I find it so rewarding and remarkable when I'm talking to NPs when we do want the similar things and we have a similar worldview, but we communicate it so different that it really does take work to understand. And I think that a lot of us, even if we know type, whether we do or not, it's so easy to just make little assumptions that you know where someone's coming from when you really don't. You know what I mean?
Well, I'd like to boil it down to how NE, and we discussed this morning and a little bit yesterday as well. With NE and NI, like we really are coming from two different kinds of states of thinking, right? Like with my discussion with the ISTP, like I finally put it into words. NISC people look at the world in a cycle. Like things do repeat themselves, and it's really just a matter of noticing your surroundings and finding those opportunities to enact what has maybe happened aeons ago, and just being aware and in tune to all of those kind of nuances in the world. I'm not like that. Like I really, like I can't speak for all the other NE users, but I've noticed, at least by observation, that we don't look at it like we'd love to look at it like that, but it would have to require us to really shift our entire worldview. Like we have to really go all the way backwards, because we're so used to seeing something like in a line. You know, you guys see it like a circle, but we see it like a line, and so it just keeps moving forward. And it's really hard to just kind of shift that and be like, oh, by the way, we're gonna loop that. Like, okay, like the movie Arrival was really messed me up because it was about cycles and circles, and I'm just like, oh, okay. But then at the same time, in the back of my mind, it's like NI users must be really enjoying this film.
Yeah. So I felt that way about the movie Eternal something of the Spotless Mind. You guys are going to hate me for not knowing this. Whatever. The movie where it was like the ENFP and the ISTJ dual couple where they were like deleting their memories. Oh, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Have you seen that movie?
No, I have not. I feel like they'll hate me too because we're not watching it. So.
Okay, well, you should. But I was watching it thinking, man, like an NE user would really love this movie.
I love how you were having that thought as I'm having this like, NE user love this one.
Because it was a good movie, but the whole concept is about what if you can go in your memories and delete certain memories. And
my 7 is very happy with this, by the way.
Yeah. And then it was like their brains were like uploaded, and like they still like fell in love even like when trying to delete the memories and forget about each other. It was like, and I feel like NE likes those things where like, okay, have you ever seen Black Mirror?
Love it.
Do you know the movie, or do you know the show Hang the DJ?
Yeah. Oh, okay. My goodness.
I feel like NE likes the idea of like, in every simulation, I always found you or something. Like,
Yep.
Whatever way you slice it, it's always,
Exactly. And I think that's kind of how, at least with me, like I'm going to connect that to how I quantify things. I have to dream up or imagine as many possible alternatives as I can. And if it maintains consistency throughout, then it must be the right decision. Because if I can't seem to, because like I don't visualize, I can't really visualize things so easily. So I have to kind of overdo with my dominant function and get all of that stuff. So for example, if I'm like, let's say I meet a girl just like walking by, and I'll just start imagining every single way I could possibly approach this person.
Oh, wow.
And if for some reason the possibilities seem to, majority-wise, seem to be like, oh, I probably do have the confidence to make it happen, then I will. But if I'm getting like 60%, 70% telling me like, no, it's not happening, Like I'll be like, no, I'm telling, and the NE too is like they're fine with it being just an idea. Like they don't want it to be a reality sometimes. They're like completely fine that it's just like, oh, just thought of it. It's okay. I can live my life. I can focus on other stuff now that I've just imagined it. It costs us nothing, no energy really.
If I was to approach someone, I would look at someone and be like, maybe I should approach them. Should I? And then I won't even wonder. I'll think, I'll know if I'm supposed to.
Oh, dang.
I'll say, if it's the right thing, it'll happen. And then I'll feel something compelling me. And then if I'm like, okay, I guess I should.
Oh, damn. That'd be so interesting to try. I don't know how to live in the moment.
I wait until I feel compelled to do things.
Oh.
And if I don't feel compelled, then that's not right for me. I don't need to think it through like that.
Okay. That's so cool because it's very I'm gonna make another reference here. But it's like it reminded me of in Aang in the Last Airbender, like he was teaching Bumi, this Earth Kingdom king, was telling Aang the difference between Jing, which apparently is a Chinese concept, and that Earthbenders work with neutral Jing, which is waiting for a moment to strike. And it's always about like always keeping your eye open and always keeping your stance prepared and ready, but not so much as like an SI preparation where you're like, oh, I'm going to work out and make sure everything is like ready. They're like, no, we'll take a step back. We'll take a hit if we need to. But when you find that opportunity, no hesitation at all. You just go for it. And it's just like, I was like, damn, like that's something. Like,
yeah.
I don't have that as an NE user. It's, if we were to have to take a moment, my NE has to quantify the entire concept and then I go for it. Which is like...
That's a really good way of explaining it. And the way that you said that some NPs will just be okay with the possibility and not need to act on it, it reminds me, I guess I used to like a lot of INFP guys whenever I was like 18 specifically. Well, like early college, that was like totally my type, like this sort of like INFP artist guy that wouldn't talk to me.
Oh Lord.
And I used to always perceive them as being too afraid to approach me. And I eventually told myself sort of like, oh, well, like a couple people in particular, not INFPs, but a couple people were like, well, they're cowards. I would just feel like they're cowards. They're too afraid to approach me when they've told other people they like me, or like, I don't have time for that. I can't wait for that. Sort of how I approached it. But then it's interesting. This one of those INFP guys told me later, oh yeah, I considered you and then I didn't. And then I considered you and then I didn't. And then I considered you and then I didn't. And he said, mostly I was trying to figure out if you were genuine or not. And I was like, well, you could have talked to me to find out a lot faster.
All of this, all the steps. Oh man, I have to say, FE is so nice to learn how to use properly, because to know that FE is there, it would have saved me so much communication problems growing up. Like that would have been fantastic. And like being ENFP with the socionics of 4D FE, like I technically have it. It's just ignoring. But even then, like it still took a while for me to get familiar with the fact that, oh, this is the solution that I needed. Like what? Like that's weird. But yeah, like with any, we don't have SE. Like we don't just like show up and just be like, hey, look at me. It's very like, hey, and then I'll wait till you're not around and I'll find a friend. I'll be like, oh, by the way, that person.
Yeah, really.
That person. Let's consider that possibility of this person. And they're like, just ask her.
Yeah, and like the thing, especially with INPs in particular, I'm just like, how could you possibly know unless you talk to someone or unless you see what happens? But I guess that goes even farther to people that have an SE blind spot, that they have to run the simulations or whatever in their head, like hang the DJ, to know if it's worth it. Like, oh,
or
like
maybe natural risk taking. I feel like they just have to take that leap of faith sometimes.
Well, yeah, but I guess I'm wondering, like, it's really hard for me to believe that process can even work. But
no, I agree. It's not practical at all.
I mean, I'm trying to like have faith though with you guys though, because clearly it works to some extent. I mean,
I sure hope so. I guess.
Well, at least what I would say is like with every function works, but not on everything, if that makes sense. Like depending on what you're trying to do, like gosh, I forgot what I was going to say, but
No,
I guess I wonder, is it still accurate to just run the possibilities and then decide without actually trying before you
well,
know?
we eventually do, because SI finally kicks in, at some point. It's like, hey, you've been making the exact same mistake for the past 3 months. Maybe you should stick to it. Maybe you should start realizing what you did wrong and not repeat it. But because we're so distracted, like it's such a fun, it's a fun function. It gives you amusement, but it's also very impractical in that sense. So living with it, being a dominant function such as myself, and always having to deal with this constantly, like everything I look is going to burst into possibilities, and you're just like, okay, I got to close my eyes if I need to focus on a thought, because if I open it, I'm going to lose it. And so, knowing that, I had to take so many precautions and so many like ways to cope with it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, like it's a disease or anything like that. It's not. My mind is so open that I consume, like I think it's empty to some extent because I'm just absorbing. Like there's no way to contain it. Or
something that Crystal told me once that I don't know if you would relate to, but she said that because NPs don't take action as much, sometimes it feels like the world is sort of swinging you on a pendulum from here to here to here, and that her FI just sort of feels like each punch or something, like from the universe pulling you. And she said that's why it can be so hard for NFPs to take responsibility for things, because they literally feel like the world is pushing them around. So they don't feel like they're in control.
No, I agree.
Because if you don't use SE and take action, then the world will push you.
And until we start developing like our lower functions, and we start either acknowledge that those functions inside of us exist and that we do have an access to it, it's going to be really tough or it's going to make an ENFP or an NFP in this case look really wishy-washy. They may come off like they have everything figured out. They may come off like they know what they like, but then knowing what you like and actually following through with what you like are two different.
Yeah, that's
right.
True.
Manifesting what I like onto reality is another set of challenges.
I have the complete opposite problem where I know once I know what I want, then I can do it. But it's hard for me to zone in and know exactly what it is I want. And if I'm ever not taking action, it's because I'm trying to identify what it is I want, and sometimes it feels vague.
And see, like you actually take a moment to think. It's something I admire with you. Like, don't take a moment to think. Like I'm waiting to react with you as we're talking, but it's like it's so hard for me to to introspect even on my own. Like, remember we had that conversation where you asked yourself things like, where am I in my life? What are my goals? What is the aim and trajectory of my dreams? And I'm like,
all the time.
I would love to be able to have a taste of what NI is like, because I would love to take a break and just hone in. Or in other words, I want to integrate to 5, but that's not happening.
The life of being an NFJ is that I set the intention for January to be the month for building foundation, and I set the intention for February to be the month of focus. And inside my head, like NI and TI has been like, I'm not done with my foundation. You've been terrible. You failed February. You failed January.
Like, oh no.
Or I'll be like, you were not as productive as you could have been during Capricorn season. You're gonna have to wait for next Capricorn season to be able to tap into that energy. I don't know, I think I've noticed that a lot of NI users like astrology, and I think that it could be because if we are like always alert or something and just sort of waiting for like the energy to move us or for us to feel moved to act, it's super easy to see the themes, at least for me, because I can tell that I feel more inspired to be productive during Earth season or Earth sign seasons, and then I feel more
kind of like symbols to like, what is it, like kind of like things you can track, makes it easier to track. Okay. So that actually reminds me, when you mentioned cycles earlier, I did a video a couple of years ago actually where I was complaining about how the American workforce should be more cyclical and not expect us to
produce the same amount every single day, because chances are we're probably going to want to produce a lot on one day and not very much the next day. And like, I wish that I can work that way. And especially like as a woman, like this is a kind of an NI concept too, but like as a woman, like our bodies go on cycles, and like it just makes more sense to be cyclical. And anything that is very like slow and steady wins the race, like we're trudging along like on this path, does not work for me.
No, I can definitely, I like that. I appreciate that kind of example, because it does give me that visualization that I need with that with the metaphor, the extended metaphor. I actually would say too, I agree, because I would say that we're very, very early was a lot of NI concepts. Like our world functions on cycles. It used to too as well. Like there was life and death, but that was fine because there was rebirth. You know, our seasons are like that. And so I agree that really they should be more aware of how the difference, and then because it's like kind of a hopeful way of thinking too, because if the whole thing is now arranged cyclically, then that would mean that no one would really feel so depressed, let's say, when something's a little low, because they know it will always come back up and be back to normal again at some point. Like, because it's so hard, I guess, me coming from the linear thinking style of people, when there is a low resource, our immediate reaction is we have to pump more resources, or we have to create more resources. There's no thought of, oh, what did we learn before? Or maybe we did. We'll take in a little bit of snippets. But we're thinking there's a problem in front of us. Okay, we're a list of all the things we went wrong, and then let's not do those, and then let's see what happens. Let's imagine maybe 20 other things.
That's so interesting. So that could be sort of an SI thing to like, I feel like SI is really into managing the resources.
I wouldn't disagree. It would definitely be like, I put it in as a risk assessment and information containment.
Because I don't know, like if I am running low on energy, then I just see that as time to relax. And if I'm high on energy, I just see that as time to do things. I don't know. Like
it's like, no, we need to be consistently feeling good.
I
mean, in that other model, it's either minus or plus, and then both pertain to maintaining or sustaining some form of comfort. So it's like you either remove the obstacle in your way to maintain your feeling of good, or you have to increase it. So it's like, oh, my room is empty. I don't feel comfortable. I need to add more cushions and fluff. Or like the other opposite end is, oh, there's too much clutter. Let's remove the clutter so I can feel better about myself, kind of thing.
Yeah. So do you think that you could take a second to sort of either define NE on your terms, or actually explain how you feel your NE as your dominant function? I know we've been talking a lot about that, and I'd like to go into kind of the differences of NE and NI.
Okay. I would say with me, it's very the consideration of potentials and possibilities. It's so different from other functions where they pretty much just look at an object for what it is. Even Jungian definition, it's like, I'll just hold up my mic right now. It's like you see the ball, right? And with NE, they look at the ball and they start thinking, well, what could the ball do? Like, what else could it do? And in my case, it's, as an ENFP, it's minus. So I'm looking for alternatives. So what else could it be? What else could it not be? It's, and the thing is this times to everything I look at. It's not something I can turn off. It's like I said before, like I had to close my eyes to turn this off, because NE is always considering only when the subject is brought up, I'll consider that possibility. I don't see it as very like stagnant. It's very reactive. At least with mine it is. So I may not always consider possibilities, but when it's presented to me, I will suddenly consider another possibility. So it's really hard.
Wait, what do you mean when it's presented to you? Like something in front of your face, or?
Yeah, like let's say it's something simple. Like let's say something concrete, like a job, right? Say the idea was, oh, let's look for a job. My first take is, what kind of job? What else do I do? What else can I start thinking and start analyzing and brainstorming so many different things about the job? But then, did I actually decide on a job? No, because NE doesn't decide. It's a generating concept. It grows. It's expanding. Everything remains open-ended to the point where, let's say I'm looking at my thing right now, and I maybe have 100 tabs open on a browser because I looked at 100 job openings, but I haven't submitted anything yet.
Before I even, there's been a couple times when I've been out of a job and before I even look to see what is there, I have sort of my like deal breakers and also like things that are musts. Like and then I know what I'm looking for, or else I'd be completely overwhelmed. Like I need to know what I'm looking for. And then so I'm very big on like filtering the search bar, like using their advanced search.
Yeah.
And like
I love
only
it
showing
because
ones I want.
yeah, I love it because it's like it's something I only learned to do after having done all the time wasting methods because my brain doesn't
Yeah.
work like that. Like I think any users dislike closing things. We
Yeah.
dislike being discriminatory. It's really hard for us to do that. And
Yeah.
so yeah, right? Like it's that's why I envy a lot of the other functions because it's almost like really cool that they can do that. And like for me, I have to kind of convince myself every time I'm faced with an option that I'm supposed to close doors and like feel good about it, even though I don't.
You never have to close any door. I don't think.
Yeah, but we see it like linear wise, right? Like we see it as when we close it, we have to move forward and not think of that door that we closed, even though technically you're right. And actually, no, actually you are right. The door hasn't been completely closed because the opportunity is still there. But like for us, it's almost as if we're blind to it. It's like,
Well, do you think it's
blind.
cyclical? Do you think it's cyclical of me that I'm not realizing that, like, let's say you exit out on a tab for a job opening. If you decide to not go there, then literally in the SI, that job, that possibility is done. But what my NI sees is that you can find the same job requiring the same skills at a very similar company with the same, like everything else the same, that is going to come up in a couple of months. They're going to need a new person.
Yeah,
So,
no, I don't.
So I guess, yeah, like maybe literally that job won't be what you want, but like, well, what is there a sort of career you're trying to get into right now, or
not necessarily, because I like to
trying to
juggle.
keep it open?
Yeah, here's me again, trying to keep it open.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I guess because with my inferior essay, like I don't really think that I'm stretching myself thin until I am. I mean, it kind of fits in with my Enneagram typing too. Like I don't really focus on how bad I'm feeling. Like I don't really look in and be like, oh, I probably don't enjoy this. Like it doesn't work like that because I will eventually find something, almost if not instantly, about something I enjoy. So I always look whimsical at a job, like at any job I work at. People always assume I'm having fun all the time. But then until I realize like I've completely exhausted myself and like you start crying in your car because you got fired because you just completely messed up and you didn't realize that I didn't see the steps that led to me being like that because I'm too busy not noticing it.
This reminds me, my ENFP cousin in high school and college had a part-time job at a dog groomer.
Oh.
And she likes it, I guess. I don't know. But I guess the owner put my cousin on her will to own the business when she dies.
Oh.
Because she was like, I know you love it so much and like this is going to be great. And so now she's like, oh my God, I'm going to own a dog business.
It's real, but I need to turn around. What do I do?
And I don't even want to say she likes it or doesn't like it. I don't even know if she knows if she likes it, but she definitely made it seem like she was having a good time while she was there, enough to make the lady think that she would want.
I guess I think it's even better that you just don't tell us. How about like we'll just manage it and like I feel as if we're doing someone a favor and that's fine. That's good enough.
Yeah, and I mean the lady's alive. She doesn't even have like an illness or anything, but it's still just like
just in the will. And it's that idea that already was like boom, we burst into like possible things of where it's not gonna happen, or it just got super real. Like oh no. Oh man.
Also when looking for like jobs, I think that's a really good example actually to compare the functions. But I think about what should I invest in? And I mean, you tell me if you think this is also sort of TI or something or SE, but I think, well, what sort of skill do I want to learn and where do I want to spend my time and what do I think would be the most like lucrative. So, okay, a metaphor I was using actually recently to one of my, I had an ENFJ like life coaching client, is she was like, she said that she never really related to NI being super like mystical. And she was like, well, what is that? Because she's like, like it's always referred to as like a fortune teller sort of thing. Like why? Like I don't get that.
That's a Raven moment, like
yeah. Then what I said to her is that since NI looks at the root of things, we can guess if what will bloom, but that doesn't mean we're like telling the future. It just means we know the root, and so we aren't surprised when something blooms from it because we already saw the root like before.
Yeah. So, and people ignore that. I would say the great majority, because NI is one of the rare functions to come up with individuals, right?
Yeah.
So, and like, I don't think a lot of people are used to people being acutely aware and sensitive to those changes in life and in time. Because I guess the majority, like we talked about, like the majority of people do think that it's just a straight line. You know, what's new is new, and like, oh my goodness, it's so brand new, but it's not. You know, like, and I would be, are you sure it's a new thing? It doesn't seem like new. Like, this reminded me of a time where this exact same thing happened. So,
something super NI that I'm feeling right now in society is I think that a lot of businesses are about to crumble. A lot of industries are about to crumble. And it just doesn't, it baffles me that certain businesses think that they're going to stay open. I mean, like, no offense, but like Applebee's or like, I don't even know if you know what Applebee's is.
Nope, we have it. We got into. Yep.
Oh, thank God. Like a lot of these sort of like,
I've eaten in one before, so.
Okay. A lot of these very like 90s, like either sit down restaurants that aren't very good or like department stores that aren't very good. Like, I'm just like, people are shopping online, or like people don't want this anymore. And all those things where it's like millennials is killing Applebee's, or millennials are killing the indoor mall. Like, no, it's not millennials. This is like what's coming up for our culture. And you are bad at business if you can't figure out how to get on with the times. But like, I guess that would be like my NI sort of seeing the root behind why they're doing that, and then assuming what's going to happen is, but it's not like I have this like strong knowing. I mean, like people always talk about NI as having this sort of like
the ultimate prophet type that just like, no. It's no, I totally agree, because the funny thing is I only managed to acknowledge it only after I decided to like take a book, look at like yearbooks and like really stare at it and been like, oh my goodness, society always goes up and down. Like it's never, it doesn't stay down. Like we had depression, you know, with the Great Depression, we went down economically, and then the solution was offered that you need to pump the economy more. And so that ended up happening again. But then like nowadays, like when you look at like, let's say a stock market, like you can't say that, oh, we can't predict anything, but you actually can predict that it does go up and down, and there are patterns, and there's like so many reports being done on that these things are an actual part of life. And this is something that's common. You can even take it even further, go by millenniums, or actually, I'm going to change that for a bit. Let me reword that. You can go back to like pop culture stuff. There's always a dislike for the old, but then now there's a reverence for the old. You know, there's always like a back and forth. So maybe in this case, those restaurants, mom and pop shops, if they don't have a chance to make it, there could be like a group of somebody, but that's my any going like could be, right? I'm not thinking it's actually going to happen. I'm offering an alternative, but I don't expect that alternative to become a reality.
And I guess another thing about like NI predictions or whatever is that I can say that they're going to fail, but for all I know, at any moment now, they can hire on this like great person and then like completely change their strategy. So I don't actually know what's going to happen.
But the thing is you're not really concerned with those possibilities of them coming up. It's more so you're just attuned to that, you know, that sequence.
Yeah, I'm just saying if things stay the same as they are, this will happen.
And I think
but I'm open to the SE change. But anyway.
True. But Annie finds that offending almost, because they're like, how could you say that? Like there's always a possibility. There's always a way, a potential we could go. I'm like, yes. I mean, coming from me, Annie, I'm like, yes. there is the possibility.
But are you going to act on the possibility?
Yeah, are you going to act on it? Like, was it,
Yeah.
who was it that, I was listening to a podcast, and like this one person was very upset, and I know this is going to be sounding a little unrelated, but like she was really upset that, somebody graffitied on this wall, so I'm going to go on Facebook and rant about it. And the podcast people, actually it was Personality Hacker, I just remembered, it was Personality Hacker, it was Joel, and he said, if you really cared about this graffiti on the wall, why don't you paint on that wall? Paint over it.
Literally.
Why is it do you have to make a scene on social media and like get people to do what? Like witch hunt like a person that did it? Like, like it's so complicated. The solution could just be really simple. Just paint it. Like, go out there, grab your bucket and just make it happen.
Something that I've always hated, and I think it has to do with the fact that my dad was a politician, is anyone that ever complained about anything going on in society and politics that didn't just act on it then themselves. Because what they don't realize, and if you don't have SE, then you don't realize the pressure that just exists, that if you aren't taking action, then you're putting more on someone else.
Yep.
So if a politician has a responsibility, like let's say the SE is like everyone's will of society or whatever, if the people don't take action, then all of that energy then goes to someone else. They're like offloading it to then somebody else who's more empowered, that then has even more responsibility because people aren't taking action. And it's really interesting that works. And I wonder if you can make a metaphor like that for every extroverted function in a way, because I also could say, like with my FE, like if I had a friendship with an FI user, if they don't pull their weight emotionally, then more of it's going to go to the, like FE is going to feel the need to do more work to bring the relationship along. And I mean, you could say the same with TE probably, like in an
if
office
no decision
setting.
is made. Yeah, if no decision is made, they'll have to offer that solution.
Yeah, like somebody's going to have to
verbalize
make a
it.
decision. Yeah.
It's funny because with any, you could do that actually. Like I found myself filling in the gaps with any. Like if I don't have context from other folks, my any will go on overdrive, which doesn't feel like overdrive for me because it's my dominant function. But then like, let's say somebody says, "Oh, I can't make it to hang out with you." Right? Would be the mid-C, just like a text message, a simple text, "I can't make it." You don't have to explain it to me if you don't mind that I don't get it, like get the exact reason why completely accurately, because I will dream up 1,000 ways why you couldn't make it, and I'm totally fine, and then I'm accepting, like it doesn't bother me. So like I've had friends be like, "It's okay, Nate, like just you go ahead," or "I can't make it, I'm sick." I'd be like, "Oh, it's probably because she didn't like drink this, or she was really stressed at work, or she probably really did this," and it just keeps going. And I play those reasons, and I'll just be like, "Oh yeah, cool, like it's no problem, no worries at all." The mistake is when I assume that other people do that for me, because they don't. So when I say things like, "Oh, I can't make it," they ask me why, and I'm like in shock because I'm like, "Oh, I have to give a reason."
I don't think I've ever said anything so simple. I always have a long, drawn out reason for things.
Oh, thank goodness. FE so clear. I love it.
I don't say, "Oh, I can't make it." Like if I'll like say to my boss, "Is there any way at all that I can please stay at home today? My car's not working and X, Y, and Z would make sense." Like I can't, I don't know. Like everyone, they need to know exactly where I'm coming from, or like I get stressed out. Well, I think I'm afraid of people using any and assuming incorrectly.
I used to do it all the time, and it would frustrate people like to no end until like they finally brought it to my attention. They're like, "Yo, you're just like delusional. Like you're just shooting your bullets everywhere, hoping it hits, and never expecting that it's not going to cost something to the other person." And I realized, oh my goodness, you're right. I should be more clearer. I should be.
Wait, so Crystal referred to NE once as intuitive labor in a way. So I wonder, like, if you don't say why, then you're pretty much offloading the other person to wonder why.
I would automatically imagine why, right? It's not even a matter of if I will imagine it, why I will. Like, it's right away, it's going to happen. It's not, there's no hesitation with that. So like if you it's like I was discussing with an INTP, like we're just talking, but we're laughing at the same time in our heads because we're like, oh my goodness, do you realize that even two any people when they're talking to each other, they don't actually get each other 100%. We're just filling each other's, you know, conversations with any in our minds and making it look like we got each other. Like we really, let's say we really don't until we finally maybe use, you know, the communicative function maybe to actually like, oh, we actually are communicating on the same wavelength. But like, no, sometimes with the fellow any users, I'm like, oh yeah, so this thing, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that thing. But we neither of us probably were talking about the same thing, but we got that the gist was the most important thing that we, you know, cared about, and that was all that mattered.
Yeah. So okay, so
It's a mess.
I don't get that. So, but okay, something that I noticed that my ESFJ boss always does, like with her NE, is like if there's like an image or like a title or something that we're gonna post on social media, she'll grab someone and be like, okay, I want you to look at this and I want you to tell me at first glance, what is the first thing that pops into your brain as like what does this make you think of?
Oh.
And she's asked me that and I've like been like, I don't know. But then the other NE users will be like, oh, that reminds me of this book I read as a kid, or like, I don't know, like, but like she has, like, for example, like she didn't want to post something because she thought the image reminded you of, I can't even remember what it was.
The thing is I got you because this is exactly how my best friend operates too.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
I don't get it, but I feel like she's looking for sensitivities, and it's like she didn't want people to get the wrong idea about what we stand for. And I just was sort of like, well, if they did get the wrong idea, they'd be wrong because that's not what it is.
Yeah, that's not what she's like. She's looking for the majority who's probably going to react and give her that majority reaction that she needed to find confidence in executing the action. With how my best friend works, it's like she'll always show me random stuff. Like, you know, she's an ESFJ, so she'll like bring up an idea, be like, oh, by the way, Nate, like look at this, and I'll be like, it's like nobody say anything, react, and like. And I was like, okay, like I'll react. Like, what do you want? Like, and then, but the thing is she's not what she wants from me to react. She wants to see me at my most rawest reaction because that's the information she needs to tell her SI that this may or may not be a good idea. Because like my raw reaction could be what she's imagining the other people may do. Because again, I guess in their eyes, I'm representative of one of many things. You know, we're all just a part of every human, so it's not really like a big deal to individuals. But then it's so pseudo NI that's not actually NI though, because NI looks at it like that. But
not
NI. SI does not actually.
Well, because it was pretty much like, I guess there's some religious figure that is very controversial that I've never even heard of, but I guess it was like a picture that she thought kind of looked like this guy. Nobody else thought it did, but she was afraid of posting something that would then make people think that we were endorsing a controversial guy. And she thought that the guy looked sort of like him.
And then that relation was enough.
So yeah, and so that's why she asked like 5 people in the organization. Nobody said that it even crossed their mind, and then so that was enough for her to say, okay, let's post it then.
Yeah, because she needs to know that her doubts are unfounded. And she can't, like, I guess it's also because of her inferior TI too. Like she's not fully confident in that idea. So she needs to get it from other people.
And I relate to the inferior TI, like wanting to ask people their opinion. But what I didn't relate to is the value of asking someone to tell you the first association that comes to their brain. Because I just was like, why does it matter? Because but then actually me saying this made her feel better, because I said, if anyone comments on our posts and says, oh my God, it's this guy, then we would just respond, no, it's not. And then they would realize they're wrong. I don't know. Like,
it's funny because my friend's fiance is of the STP side of things, or maybe SFP. I'm still trying to figure that out. But he's of the SE and I axis too. So when him and I kind of make our opinions heard, she feels a lot more comfortable and a lot more calm because she knows that she's around people who do not think like her. So she will get the most rawest form of pure opinion that can remind her that, like, no, it's all just in your head. This is all just in your SI. This isn't actually reality. And it's like,
do they like that? Do
they
SJs
do. They really do. I don't know how other people like think that ESFJs could be pushovers in some sense, but sometimes they're really not. They're just really curious. Like,
yeah,
they really just want to know.
My mom, as an ESFJ mom, like, okay, so I was a very avid reader as a kid, and I went above and beyond and would try and read above my grade level. And then in middle school, they did this test that was very TE, that was just like testing random vocab words. And then however well you did, you got selected into either an advanced class or not an advanced class. And I did not get selected into the advanced class. And so my mom actually went to the school and complained. Okay, I'm such a millennial. But like, she went to the school and complained and showed these test scores of like, because we also had this thing called AR where like if you read a specific book, then you would test like your comprehension. And my mom went to the school and showed, or it was like she read To Kill a Mockingbird, and like she was like, this test is unethical because she clearly has a high level of comprehension or whatever. And I got in the class. Like, my mom does not take shit from people, but like, I don't take shit from people. Like, I don't perceive FE DOMs as taking shit from people. So, I mean, I understand like ESFJs, especially since they're less likely to just get aggressive or something for no reason. But I don't know, like for her, maybe her SI, she didn't want me in middle school to be around bad kids or something. Like, it's a bad influence.
Yeah, maybe she had an experience in that and realized this is not going to happen again. We're not going to repeat that. So, and I don't want to repeat to vicariously happen through you as her daughter, right? Like, she doesn't want you to go through that.
That's probably exactly it.
Yeah, my parents are always like that. My dad's like, he used to be a farmer in the Philippines, and he used to have like, he skipped every other year because he had to stop and work. So he would carry heavy loads. He went like, hard. His biggest dream in life was to get a golden, like, those farm tools, because he didn't have much dreams. He thought that this was all it is. And then he finally managed to find a way to get to Canada. Long story short, because of like my mom and stuff. So they got, in love, and they got that happening. But then they're both SI DOMs, and they're always like, my mom always telling me, she goes, your dad's always trying to protect you because he experienced so much hardships in his past. He doesn't want you to experience it. So he'll try to make everything in your life easier so that you don't have to go through what they went.
What type is your dad again?
He's an ISTJ.
Okay, I was going to say, reminds me of my ISTJ grandpa who came to America from Italy. Like, he had a very similar
never been unemployed in his life. It's fantastic.
My grandpa came here when he was like 15 or something, and left his two younger brothers like behind. Him and his dad came, and he got a job and sent money back for years before his brothers came. So it was very, and so, but my mom says things a lot like, oh, well, you were so much smart. She'll say, you were so much smarter than I was, like, as a kid. Like, I made all these bad decisions. Like, and she said like, oh, I didn't even realize the value of getting an education and like bettering yourself until I met your dad. My dad's an ENFJ. When he was like, I probably would have not even cared as much about education if it wasn't for him. And so now, like, I want you to value your education. So I don't know if that's like an
because like they've learned it. Yeah, you know what's really funny? Now that we've on this kind of topic, like I think it's really true for the Eastern side of the philosophies, because I think the Eastern sides are incredibly SI. Like how it is with us. Like my dad would always tell me idioms and anecdotes from Philippine history. Like that was always his deal. And apparently he was taught that from his grandparents, who taught their grandparents. Like it was just a constant passing of information. And it kind of goes along with my theory that NESI is linear, because it's just a line of just information being passed down, of just learning and experiences that people just took into their consideration. Like, oh, if I touch this, I die. Therefore, let's not touch that, and then pass that information to the next, seedlings, and then like create societies built on it.
I just realized that. So NE and SI, maybe you see it as a line, but also NE also likes to think about multiple realities. And so it's like multiple lines, as many
But
lines
it's
as
still
possible.
horizontal. Like it doesn't go
Yeah.
everywhere. Like it's still flat. Like it's never really like.
I see reality as very dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for us it's
Like,
very static, I would say.
I would say, like, for me, at any moment things can change. I see things as like breathing in and breathing out, sort of like our lungs, and there's like,
Do you
or go
find
ahead.
it kind of funny listening to SI people when they say things like, "How could you have not realized that if we were just telling you that it happened before?" It's like, why did you treat it as if it was new? But we've told you we experienced it as it is, and it will be that way.
Wait,
It's
what's
like,
like an example? I'm sorry.
remember when we were having the conversation with an ESTJ, and they're like, "How we don't know how you function? Like, how do you guys function in reality?" Like, and
Oh
then you're
yeah,
like, "Oh, because we just go by opportunities." And then they're like, "What?" We
yeah,
go by what's been passed down on us or something, and like we go with what we were taught and what we learned through our experiences, not by what
yeah.
opportunity comes our way.
And even just like, okay, like my sister as an ESFJ, she is graduating college in May, and she
Okay.
already has a job secured for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, it's like a program where it's like a 1 year thing that pretty much is guaranteeing her leadership experience and is like a good salary or whatever. And she's choosing to live at home during that time, even though she can afford to get an apartment, because for her it's just so important to have a savings account and have managerial experience by the time she's I don't know, 23.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so for her that is a huge sigh of relief of, thank God I'm not going to have to worry about if I have, because she's always been a natural leader, that it's like, if she can't prove to people she's a good leader, then what is she going to do? She doesn't want to start at the bottom. Like, she was like
Mm-hmm.
she was like student body president. Like, she's been involved in so many things. She's great at organizing people. She does like event planning.
Yeah.
But I if I were her, I definitely would have had to get out of my parents' house, because I would have not wanted to feel like a high schooler, and I would have needed like that room to breathe, to know who am I supposed to become as an adult. But for her, her anxiety came from just wanting to feel like she's set for life in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm not set for life like in that way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not something that I stress about.
No, it's definitely something that they prioritize. I know with
Mhm.
one of my friends, that's they refuse to move out until they're married, like until they found
Mhm.
somebody and they got married, because they'd rather stay at as much as they can, soak up as much as, I guess, the sensory input that they could, and then and that's enough for them, and then they have to make peace with that side of them and then move forward, but they can't just jump into it. It's like,
I also, or go ahead.
yeah, like it's kind of, it's funny because all this SI stuff I really find appealing. Like I think
Mhm.
it's really appealing for me because like having two SI dom parents, like I've made this decision where, and it sounds off to other, like when to other people the other axis, because I've decided like I will not pursue other goals that seem like normal to other folks, like getting in a relationship, finding, so until I finally proven to myself that yes, I can do this, I do have a savings account, I'm living on my own, maybe at least 2 years, and it's like nothing else can enter until those things are completely fulfilled. And then everybody's like, oh, that seems a little too strict. But the thing is it though? Like my mind is like, it's not strict, because that's just 2 years. What's 2 years compared to the marriage life that I could have with a person that's after those 2 years?
Yeah, and okay, this is interesting to me, because if NI makes NE feel like you're narrowing in on a possibility, like that, I think makes my SE feel like, oh wow, you're
Fully
narrowing it
limiting
down.
myself. I
Like,
think it's a comfort thing, and it's like, ew, like who cares about comfort? And I'm like, I certainly really do. I
I
mean,
have tried, and there's been times in my life where I've been like, oh, I probably shouldn't be dating right now, or I probably shouldn't be whatever right now, or focusing on this. I can't do it, because if the right thing comes along, I always am going to take it. Like, and I have never really quite understood. It was honestly probably a lot of NPs that would say things like, oh, well, now wasn't the right time. Like, what? Like, you can, Like, what are you waiting for? Like, I always think that people are like trying to limit themselves, but I think that SI and NE, you want to take it one step at a time. Like, you're like, I want to have this goal, then this goal, then this goal. Do you want to know what I'm doing? I'll show you. I'm tracking my habits, and I am biting off way more than I can chew. But as long as I'm getting a little better every day, that's all I really care about. I'm not achieving anything. But like, I mean, these are like these habits. There's a lot of white there. I mean, this is just meditate every day, do a YouTube video, like make sure to get 8 hours of sleep. Like, I mean, this is not even really all, like, I used to have like a way longer thing of like habits, and where it would be like too much. It's like, I can't like focus on my diet and my exercise routine and reading more and getting sleep. But these are just all things I have as like an intention for myself. And as long as I'm getting somewhere, I care more about making it a habit so that I don't have to think about it. Because like, we all brush our teeth every day.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And that doesn't take a lot of effort.
Yeah.
That doesn't take a lot of effort because it's just a habit.
Yeah,
you know? Like, we don't forget to eat because our body needs it. You know, and if I try, and so I'm like trying to treat these things as necessary to live. And the more I do it, the more natural it feels. But I don't like to segment it into little tasks like, oh, I'm going to get my money life, and then I'm going to get my relationship. Like, it's, to me, it's just, it's my life.
That's funny. You know? Yeah, but you know what's really hilarious about that? Like, from my end, it's more so I have to say things out loud a lot so that my ideas don't remain in my brain. Like, I have to challenge the NE to accept the disappointment that reality is the way it is. Because NE likes to think that, oh, it could be this. But I have to force myself to realize, no, what if it cannot? You know, what if it's not sustainable? It has to have a hold. It has to have some tether onto reality. So like, a lot of my moves as if a lot of my decisions in life were always had to be extremely like researched and calculated, because I did not want because I knew my NE was so wild that if I let it leak even a little bit in moments that I couldn't afford that, it was going to be like a toppling of buildings, and I'll be like, nah, it's not going to work out. Things like if I'm feeling sick or feeling hungry, like I would notice those, and I feel like I would automatically move towards making things like that. Like, for example, if I'm like doing a project or something and I'm finding myself, I can't focus, and then I realize, oh, it's because I'm hungry. So I'll just go and eat, finish that little detail, come back, okay. But then like, if I want to manifest an idea with NE, it's hard. It's like, I will give you 1,000, but I can't give you one that actually works.
Okay. So you said that NE has to realize that the world isn't the way that you think it is, or
yeah, there's a very idealistic quality to
it. Then how is NI different? Because are we the same? Like with like
sure,
sensing?
because like, yeah, we are both intuitives, right? So we like, I mean, I've had my complaints about NI DOMs.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear you drag NI. Like, I want to like see, because like, I think it's almost like an inability to accept that SE exists, obviously, like for you, but then like for me, it's some sort of SI thing. But I don't know. See, I'm always paralleling things.
Yeah.
To see.
Well, about the whole like NI, we'll talk about this one, and then we'll see how. So with the NI DOMs that I have, like, I've been, wonderfully meeting all these wonderful NI DOMs on the internet and having really wonderful conversations with them. And then I get bored. Not because it's what they're saying isn't relevant, not what they're saying that anything they're saying is wrong. It's just, I can't, like, what do I do with that information? Like, what do I do with a cyclical thinking where I can't even track it normally with my own use, what am I used to track? So I'm left to ask questions and to look stupid. And it's like, and the thing is when they're locked in NI land, which I like to call NI land, when they're just lost in this.
Well, what do you mean? What do you do with it? And
this guy, I know that this one guy, he like talked about how, like, what if heaven, didn't exist, or what if heaven was an alternate reality, an alternate dimension where we could finally talk to a deity. And that was because, and then somehow he tied it into how creating that because God is lonely. And there was probably some kind of NI connection to that. Like he was basing it off of a multitude, a bunch of sources that managed to create.
Yeah, what I would say about that is that I think that there's sort of this theme of wholeness versus separateness. And on Earth, we're separate. And when we die, we're back together again. It's just like breathing in and out.
And the thing is I don't cash it unless it's, laid out for me, right? Like I only found out about my whole NI attunement maybe when I started reading like history books, when I started realizing, oh, there are patterns that's been tracked with SI. That's like, if you just used NI, we didn't have to make all these encyclopedias that explain things. We could just track it. But
yeah, one big thing that always stuck out to me in history was like, oh wow, there's always been a group of people that were ahead of the curve trying to make progress, and there's always been people afraid of that, trying to shut them down. But at the end of the day, the good has always won, and we've always evolved. That's just how it is. We're always going to keep evolving. That was one of the main things I got from it. But I remember I would ask questions like in history. I never could understand it if it would just be like, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Like, I needed to know what caused what. And I remember asking a teacher, like, okay, so I'd be like, well, what ended the Great Depression? Like in America, was it the war or was it FDR's New Deal? And they're like, oh, well, that's up for discussion. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, there's got to be one of them that caused it.
Like the very beginning, there had to be the first move that was done that had to have led to the next move.
Yeah, and then they were like, well, some people say that it was the war, and some people say that it was the New Deal, and that's sort of like politically people disagree. And I just remember when I was learning that, I was confused because I thought, like, I wanted my history teacher to tell me this led to this and this led to this, but then I can look back and know which things are causing things and which things are just randomly associated. But yeah.
No, it's I mean, it's also safe to say too, like history wasn't like an argument, like history is written for the victors, so you can't really even look at the past as if it was an objective source. Like we studied like primary sources and secondary sources, but even then it can still be muddied. Like you go back archaeological times of like actual ancient fossils and stuff, you can't really trust certain pottery that was made because you don't even know if it's like
that's also very NE of you to even wonder about the source. Like that's something I've thought about though before, but it's not something that I would dwell on.
Well, because there's just so much more of like mundane reality that we don't pay attention to that may have an NI, insight with, but it's never recorded, right? So it's funny too, because I'm relating to this to the whole, like, this is probably why we need to listen to NI users, because, they're attuned to those kinds of changes. They know what those are without having to write it up and record it, right? Like it's there.
Yeah. So tell me if you relate to this, but my ENTP friend, Carly, shout out if you're watching, has told me before, like, that there's one girl in particular that I know who's an INFJ that I really like. And then the ENTP was like, she's boring. I don't know what to do with her. Like it reminded me of what you were saying, kind of. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean she's boring? Just ask her a question and then watch. She'll have an interesting thing to say. And then she was like, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't want to have to do that. Like, she's like, you have to prove to me. She's like, you have to prove to me that you're interesting. I'm not going to go digging for you to like finally say something interesting. And like, I don't know if you feel like that.
No, I mean, I could relate that to what Krista said about was it the intuitional labor thing? Because like,
yeah.
Because I feel like if I do that to somebody, like let's say an INFJ, I will get it wrong, and I feel like I'd be over assuming something, and I don't want that to be the result.
And see, I like just get super naturally curious about why people are the way they are, and so I'll ask questions to sort of glean some sort of NI about them. But I feel like NE users, you just as a person, and like Carly and Crystal and my friend Christine, whoever, you walk into a room and you're just like interesting. You're saying random things that are interesting. And normally people just will flock to you and talk about whatever you're saying. It's like, why would you like go to some INJ over there in the corner and try and like make them engage with your, is that how it sort of feels? Or
Like I know how like in other areas people there are like a bunch of any users, excuse me, they're like, oh, it's so interesting to talk to INJs. They're so deep and mysterious and all that stuff. I just personally don't have the time to engage. Like I'm sorry, like I just don't. I walk into a room and I get the feel and I assume right away. You know, I walk in, I'd be like, okay, who do I need? Who does what? Who does this? You know, what do you bring to the table? And I'll have that mental picture in my brain, and then I'll just start engaging with somebody.
In what way do NJs not seem like they bring something to the table? And
Especially if they don't talk right away to me. But at the same time, I can't say that as an absolute statement either, because like I have to say, like once you actually get an INJ specifically to start talking, it is, you know, like maybe this is my polar T I thinking, so I'm trying to explain something, and it's gonna sound ridiculous. But like when they start talking, it is kind of interesting because they are giving me a perspective that is completely off base from me. You know, it's completely different, and it's my NE is gonna treat what they think is a very obvious insight as something completely new. Like I would look at it as like, oh my goodness, this is like a brand new brand that, you know, I had never considered ever, because I didn't look back, you know, 23,000 years ago if I had to find it. But then for them, it's like they didn't even have to do that. They're just noticing it. So it's
yeah, exactly.
You know, like I was like, what the heck? Like this is shocking to me. I'm intrigued. But then the problem, I guess, with INJs is like they have this mentality, and then they just stick with it. They're just stuck with this circle thinking, and they like the sad part about it is y'all are the rarer types by statistics. It's so hard for you guys to translate. It's already hard enough for us to understand NI language, and now you're just gonna be stuck to your NI like cloud. Like no one gets you.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be so hard for us to understand. And like with INFJs, I would be like, I hope maybe my 40 FE, though ignoring, will help at some point and attempt to form that connection. But then like if they're trying to explain it to me, and sometimes they usually explain it in the form of TI, and my TI doesn't have patience because I want to use your insight right away. I'd be like, great, now you're a sage. I love it. You're like this therapist. Great, now fix it. Like I love that. Let's use it. Let's fix something.
Like this reminds me, I've said lots of things. I've said lots of things in my videos that people have then, mostly NPs, have then like commented and said, oh, like Carl Jung said that quote or something. Like I remember one time I just made a random video about my view of paradoxes, and someone was like, oh, like Carl Jung has said the same thing. And I was like, no way. Like I've literally never read that. Like that's just how I viewed paradoxes. And I think it's interesting, since Carl Jung is an NJ.
The parallels could be drawn from that, because I guess
okay, it's interesting that you said that you could talk to NPs and not even necessarily know where they're coming from, because I feel like I do understand where NJs are coming from, and I don't know if that's just me or if it's the nature of the function or what, because I don't think it's that cool. It's not like, oh, look at me, I thought of something Carl Jung said. I think that it's obvious. I think it's obvious, and if I were to have read what he said, I would have thought it was obvious too. Like, like it's mind blowing maybe to an NE user, but to me, it's just a thing that you can notice.
Maybe, you know, if I hang out a lot more, which I have been hanging out with a lot more NI users. Thank goodness, Megan. Like, thank you for existence, and also for Kat's existence and all the other NI users in the life. That my SI now has something to work with. You know, that I have like information, insights that now doesn't seem surprising with my NE anymore because I've heard it.
I will say that, like, for example, like with Kat and I, it's not that we always know where the other is coming from, but we know if we don't know, and we'll ask a lot of questions until we do.
You guys you make it smooth with that communication, right? Like you guys can actually do that exchange. It's uncomfortable for me to attempt it, but I will definitely do, because it's something I've learned in the past where it did not work for me by assuming misunderstanding an NI user. I think it's 10 times better for me to know where it's coming from, what state of thinking they must be using. That way it's easier to have that communication, because it's already a break in thought, because I'm NE, you're NI. It's not going to be like.
So would you think it would be helpful for an NP to just hang around NJs, learn how they work and then almost sort of incorporate it in your SI as like a way that people are, or how would you go about doing that? Because I forget what I'm asking. I'm sorry.
No, I get it. It makes sense because yes, that is a good. It's funny because I got the opposite or kind of an off way of learning, being raised up, because I got raised to value and put priority to SI. So like it was already kind of like messed up because my thinking has been like super told to be linear, and then like here I am in my 20s being introduced to NI for the first time, and it's like the hell, right? Suddenly this is a whole different avenue to look at. But it's been so helpful because when you are an NP and you think that there are no options in the world anymore because you've exhausted, looking at all those alternatives, and I will come in and be like, yo, throw all of that away.
Yes.
And look at it for what it is and be like, now what do you think? Do you see the opportunities start popping up? And you're like, oh, thank goodness. Like,
oh my God, that is so
done.
true. That's so crazy you said that. And now I'm trying to remember if I actually told you something like that a few weeks ago, or if this is just parallel thought again.
My SI is probably going to agree with you. I'm like, yeah, maybe.
Well, I was helping Chris. Oh, wait, no. I think, okay. I responded. Okay. I did make sort of a Twitter thread about this, not really, but my friend Crystal, that you know, she
my clone, or I'm her clone. Let's put it that way. I don't know.
Yeah, that you guys both have similar SI traumas.
It's an Eastern thing. I feel like we've all suffered if you're from the East and you're an NP.
Yeah, oh my God. I feel bad for NP Asians that are told that you have to follow this SI.
Oh, like worship your ancestor type? Like follow this. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like inferior SI, like I could not care. Like I couldn't care any less than this.
Yeah. So something that I was thinking when talking to her is pretty much, she was like, she's trying to decide like where her path will go with journalism, because she's sort of realizing like, oh, this specific job is not as comfortable in the SI as I thought it would be, or this possibility is not as perfect in the SI. Like, but then she like branches out like, okay, there's magazine, or I can do freelance, or I could quit journalism and do marketing. Like she's exhausting these opportunities, but she's not. When I was talking to her about it, I'm like, you don't have to do any of that. Like start at the drawing board. Like, what do you want to do? And then I sort of realized like that it's really NI, that it's like forge your own path, get rid of the possibilities, go where nobody has ever gone before, sort of thing. And like, I mean,
yeah, pick a very unfamiliar route and just go for it. Because like NI has a blind faith.
I'm doing, honestly. But sorry, go ahead.
Well, NI has a blind faith associated to their possibilities. Like we kind of are kind of hopeless optimists in that sense, unless we're hurt and become like cynical. But hopeless optimists we're like, we'll hope that the possibility is enough to carry us through. We'll hope that everything kind of fits in together because we don't have NI telling us where it's coming from. We just assume and hope that it gets there.
Yeah, well, see, my NI would be like, well, journalism isn't perfect because this, or like writing for a paper isn't perfect because of this, and magazine isn't perfect because of this.
I'm not thinking that deep.
So maybe you can tell me this. None of my SJ relatives have any clue what I'm doing with my life right now, even though I've explained.
Maybe that's just an intuitive thing, because I know with my, like, how my family sees me, because I'm one of the only intuitives in mine as well. They see me, I guess by extension, you as kind of, was it wishy-washy maybe? Like they lost wandering.
Well, my mom told me that everything that I'm doing with my life is the opposite of what she thinks would be like a smart decision. But so I am working part-time at a company for 29 hours. I'm making YouTube videos. I'm making some money from that. I'm making some money from coaching. And I'm making some money from random like ghostwriting or digital marketing. Like I have a few contacts that I'll just do projects for here and there. And then I have a Patreon, and then I'm also going to school.
See, like this, I feel like that kind of thinking can like overwhelm an SI user.
Yeah.
What the heck am I, like, what the heck is that kind of like work condition?
I think my mom has always told me I make things difficult for myself.
That's so cute.
But I think that she makes things difficult for herself because she's just living a lot. I mean, like, what do you do? Like, I don't know. Like, well, see, like for me, I have probably like 10 revenue streams, but like none of them are that much or anything. But just like the fact that I feel like it could be hard for an SINE user to see how this all fits together and like where I'm going.
Because we were looking at it, I guess, from just it's a case by case. You don't see it as how it's all connected. Yeah.
Like maybe you would think, oh, so you have this job, but then you're also going to school to do psychology. Wait, so you're learning about marketing, but you're also doing psychology. Wait, but then now you're also like doing this YouTube thing. So like people are confused.
Yeah.
I want to know why.
Well, the thing is, I could compare it similarly to how, remember I told you one time where I would have 5 books open at one time and I'd be reading it, rotation, which is very NE of me. I don't stick to one book to the end. It's like, I look at one page of this, I will move on to the next, like I'll flip the page of the next book, which flips the book to the next, flip the page of the next book, and I'll just keep rotating. And then I'll have 5 conversations happening at once as well. And like drawing all this information and synthesizing it in the moment, without ever really stopping to digest what I read. It's like I only digest it through communication. So like I was telling the 9TP on Disco, I was like, hey, I'm going to have to use you. I'm sorry that I may sound like I'm using people as resources. But the thing is, it's because I don't have any other way. Like if I don't sit here and like be like, oh, so what did I read like 2 hours ago? Like,
what do you mean by using people as a resource?
In a sense, like I would have to find somebody to talk to express what I just read, for me to finally digest that information and for it to stick to me. Because if I don't communicate it to somebody else, that information is lost. And I would just forget that the book existed or something. Like I would just forget that its value. But then like my boss, I believe is an STJ, kind of noticed that with me. Like when he was training me at my job, he's like, I noticed that it's not that you're a good teacher, but when you are transferring information to another person, it's you're showing me evidence that you finally clicked with the information that I've been teaching you. Like when I teach you stuff, you don't keep it in until you transfer that information to somebody else. And it becomes so refined. And like I say it in a way that apparently is refined, or it's much more clearer or whatever. But I'd be like, really? Like I needed this to cope with, because if I didn't do that, I'm going to be fumbling with everything again. Like I don't have a way to organize it properly. So it's like, again, like my NE is reactive like that. Like I can't just, sit here and be like, oh, by the way, the pondering the meaning of the universe. I'm like, no. No. What? I could ponder the multitude of the universes, but it will get me nowhere.
To me, it really does get me somewhere. I don't really know why. But like, for example, my goal is to help and see, and NJs have such lofty goals, but it
sounds lofty. How about that? It sounds lofty.
Sounds
but
lofty.
I think it is.
It feels
like
very
realistically, it's not actually lofty.
No, it's not.
Because I think NESI would see you guys and be like, "Oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming," but they're doing it. Like it's actually happening. Like it's not that it's not like how we say, like how I would say something like, "Oh, Megan, like I want to be this. I want to start putting out content or something." But I'm not actually putting out content, because to me, it's just an idea. When you guys say something, it's like you're saying it as you are doing it as well. So there really is evidence to draw from that. I guess us from the opposite axis is kind of uncomfortable with.
Wait. So maybe if I announce like an NI lofty goal, and e-users can see how that can open the door to so many similar possibilities when I'm trying to actually close.
Because you're practically like you've already are in action. You're in motion as you like when you say things. Like you tell me things like, "Oh, I'm like a content creator," and you are. Like this is truth. It's not like something like me where like, "Oh, it'd be nice to be a content creator. It'd be nice to pump out more tweets or something." But then it's like I'm coming from an idea only perspective. I haven't like created any kind of plan. Versus like talking to Kat, she'll be like, "No, I already have it figured out." and I'm just telling you as a way of, getting you to know what I'm going from or going to.
Yeah. Because for me, let's see if I can try and say my lofty goal is that I want to be a speaker, a writer, own a media company, and share knowledge about psychology and philosophy.
Okay.
And create content about that and create communities about that help people understand each other and themselves. Do you see how vague that is?
It is, but the funny thing is, if you hadn't described what you were doing right now, like in your life, it would have sounded like you're crazy. They're trying to be like some kind of, MBTI Jesus or something. And it, like, I think probably people kind of misassume that you're like, maybe an 8 or something, a type 8 with all this like, oh, she's so bold with her life. I'm like, no, it's all from things she's currently happening in her life. Like she is like you just mentioned, you handled like a lot of revenue sources. You are writing for other people. You have a part-time job. You're living. You have a full-time, relationship. Like these are all things, and it's literally all leading to it.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It is.
It's in the process
that's why I'm getting my psych degree so that I can understand psych more, so that I can. It's like I do like to dip my toes in things, and I know that a lot of NJs have mistyped as an NP because of this. Because you might think, oh, you have so many different interests. Like, isn't that NE or something? But I'm like, whatever I'm doing, like I see the way media is changing. I see the way psychology is changing. Everyone's talking about mental health now. And people are reading more than ever before. We just don't realize it because we're reading on our phone.
Well, the information age is like kicking in full gear, right?
Yeah. There's no reason why. Influencer marketing is huge. Like if you actually look at what the trends are, it's like I want to know about journalism, and I want to know about psychology, and I want to know about working at a business. And I also want to know about my own time management from doing freelance stuff. And then all that's going to come together to where I will take random gigs doing motivational speaking, or I will like keep doing YouTube and then like meet with people and then start a podcast from there. And then just,
well, didn't you already like you've already been to VidCon and all that kind of stuff? Like you're already putting yourself out.
What really I think helped me realize I could do this is that I worked for an online magazine where there was only 5 of us, and it was profitable. I had a salary and everything, but we were so small. But I knew the way the business worked. I knew that there was advertising, and I knew what everyone did, and I knew that it was profitable. And then I realized, because whenever I look at the analytics, I was like, these are getting less views than my videos. And then I was like, wait a minute, if media companies can be profitable and only have this many views, the only difference is that they made a good enough case to get advertisers and to get partners and all of that. Like that's the only difference. Because attention is currency. And if you can figure out
to hold that attention where everyone's attention is like a goldfish. Like
yeah, and that's why I know from everyone I've talked about, or from everyone that I've talked to lately, the world is literally crumbling. People are more in search for meaning than they've ever been, I believe. And so that's why a lot of people like on Twitter or whatever are like so addicted to it, or like we're trying to find like-minded people literally so much. We're all addicted to our phones because real life is not as exciting. I don't know. But yeah, like everything I'm doing is very much leading in a direction that I see very clearly, but it's hard to convey that to SI. And
because for us, it's like, at least, I don't know, like for myself, speaking for me, it's like, it's so hard to focus when my priority is to be distracted. Like, and I think I see that a lot with like other folks, like you said, mentioned on the internet. Like, why else would we be so addicted and holding onto our phones if we weren't trying to escape some form of reality that we just didn't, we don't want to acknowledge. We don't want to change. We don't want to do anything about it. We just want to laugh at a cat video and, just die afterwards. Like, have a hobby every now and then and just, lose it.
We become obsessive because there's some sort of like emotional need that we don't have.
which
met.
is kind of sad because I feel like
Yeah.
we're more and more so much information, but we can't seem to parse it properly. Like we can't seem
Yes.
to quantify it or some way use it in a sense that can actually help us develop our thinking critically. You know, like it's like we're not really.
Yes.
I don't think like information is free. You know, take this like with a grain of salt to everybody else. Like it's information is free in that sense, but information isn't viable either because like we can't even use it to get what we need, which is actually the way to cope with the harsh reality that we are currently all living in.
Oh, it feels like very heavy TI with no TE in a sense. I don't know why I'm getting that, but it's like we all can learn as much. Is it useful? Like we all
I'm
have,
always looking if it's because it's like I always have to know if it, like relating it to the previous topic we had, like I've always had this thing where if you can't convince me in 3 seconds, I'm gonna dismiss your idea. Because like I need to be able to use it in like right away. It needs to be able to have like some form of, and I know that I guess in other situations that's not always correct. You know,
I
like,
hate that thinking
accurate.
so much. Like I'm no offense. I just hate that so much. Like
you should see, yeah, probably why I'm like this with INJs, right? Like my own problems with them. Because they're all like, so let's talk about this. It takes 2 hours. And I'm like, no.
Well, I've gotten
No.
I've gotten comments on videos. I feel like it's NENTE is why you are like that. And so I've gotten this sometimes from like ENTJs or like ENTPs. They would be the only ones to honestly say that. ENFPs are probably too nice. I don't know. But people that are like,
an
get to
INJ
the
actually called
point.
me out as too dismissive. He said that
Oh,
like he
yeah.
thinks like very dismissive. And I definitely agree.
I'm not saying that you are. I've never like literally seen you do that, but
oh, yeah. You should see me interact then. I'm be like, oh, I don't like it. No. Like there's times when someone would bring up, what if I'm this? And I get so vehemently opposed to it. I'll just be like, no, it's not an argument. Go away. Go burn.
Also
Like
there's this YouTuber that like is like an ENTP that did a reaction to one of my videos that was like, oh yeah, she's still talking and like kept like skipping over. And I'm like, you don't know what I'm saying because you skipped what I said. Or like people with NE will be like, oh wow, get to the point. And I'm like, no, I'm explaining the point. Like, I don't know, like
well, the thing is too, right? Like I'm a results type and you're a process type. So right? Like you have that journey and I actually have to sit through that journey for me to actually get where you're coming from. But then like for you to like get me, it's like I have to create a process for it because like what matters is the result to me.
Yeah, so and results and process is is a socionics term for those.
I think, yeah, I'm so relatively new. When they were trying to introduce the terms to me, I'm like, huh? Like, okay, that's a new set of jargon. We could want to discuss like I guess the differences between ENFP male and ENFP females. That'll be fantastic.
Yes, and then could we maybe end it on this? Well, we could talk about this, and then maybe at the end, say just our last words.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I guess I could start. Yeah, I could probably just head over. I don't know, like maybe because we did talk about how you haven't really interviewed much, I guess, ENFP guys.
Yes, and this is actually I really want to just start interviewing more people in general on my channel because I really enjoy it. I was a journalist, but so yeah, why don't you just start by telling me, I guess, a little bit of the difference that you've noticed between ENFP males and ENFP females. And I guess, well, before you say that, I'll just say something general that I've noticed is that I made a video about this, is that 70% of men test as thinkers and 70% of women test as feelers. But it's kind of unclear if that is a biological thing or if it's all a social thing.
Yeah, like if there's some kind of cultural backlash, there's like
I would guess it might be somewhere in the middle, but
it can't be exactly what it is.
I lean toward thinking it's mostly a social thing.
Okay.
And people are maybe just a mistype. But I don't know. It could be completely just true that is the way it is. But no matter what, I would say that if you are a feeler guy, you probably have a lot of pressure to develop your thinking functions. And the same with if you are a woman, if you're a thinker woman, you probably have a lot of pressure to deal with your
Like
your feeling.
Well, I
So
think we've had that conversation where INTP women have a better developed FE because it's like they
yeah,
have no choice; they have to, right?
yeah.
I would say at least with back to the the full on specifics of ENFPs.
Which okay, actually, I'm just gonna throw this out there that I believe that
Yeah.
Taylor Swift is an INTP, and a lot of people don't think that, but because they see the
Hot take,
FE,
girl.
if they see the FE very strongly, but she's so calculated and she's so in her head, and I just think she's an INTP.
We could probably go on and on with seeing actually get down to the bottom of it. I actually haven't really looked at Taylor Swift that.
Yeah.
I mean, knowing me, Megan, me and my results type, it's like okay, yeah.
And the idea was spurred by like one of her songs, Crystal, my ENFP friend, telling me, she's like, how come all of my alpha friends and NTPs keep saying that this song is exactly their brain? And I don't know. And then I just went into it from there.
Oh,
and also like the song, she has a song, Look What You Made Me Do, which is like, what EJ or what J, I don't know. Like, it's just very reactive.
Look What You Made Me Do. Love the song, by the way. Like I've had phases with a lot of songs in life.
Anyway, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me for that, but whatever.
I mean,
Anyway,
for more discussion, right? Like if it's a spur of conversation, why not? Yeah. So back to that, I've noticed, and I hope the other ENFPs who are listening have picked up on this as well. And I'm not trying to make like ENFP guys sound like a little bit like off-putting or in some sense, because I'm not trying to do that. But I've noticed that a lot of ENFP women are very more aggressive or assertive compared to their ENFP guy cousins. Let's put it that way. They're a lot more like they're eager to, for lack of a better word, I guess, manipulate the crowd that they could with their, with who they are, and weaponize FI with all this kind of things and try to get people on their side a lot. And it's almost very easy for them to play that game. And then for guys, we can play that game. We know how to play that game because we're also ENFPs. But it's almost as if like we had to pick our battles a little too much, a little more calculated, because it's not always celebrated or accepted for us to do those same tactics. So like things could be like, I can't always compliment everybody because somebody can't, will take that a wrong way. Like what I'm going to use to compliment a person to get me what I want will be taken completely the wrong way, and I'm the problem. Whereas I see with an ENFP woman, they can compliment no problem and it'll be fine. Or maybe, and the thing is, I could just be wrong. This could just be an observation that's only specific to me. Mind you, though, Megan, it's so funny. I've never met an ENFP in my real life.
Okay.
So all of my ENFPs are online. So I could be having very skewed data. Like my data could be completely off. But I've just, talked with a whole bunch of these proposed ENFPs.
That sounds accurate from what
just from casual observations and just, conversations with other guy ENFPs as well. Like, and there's like
ENFPs are like, ENFP girls remind me of like that girl in middle school that would like take the dude's hat and like wear it and be like, haha, I have your hat now, or something. And just like fuck with people, and like,
yeah,
for some reason it's cute and they'll giggle, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess it's that anything, but maybe I think is I can't always apply it to myself as well. Like I could say I related to the concept of the ENFP male being more nervous back then, because when I was younger and he was so strong, I didn't want to make a move, because if I made any move, it would become another move that would lead, and my brain would just explode, type of thing. But with growing up now, I feel like I see all these women like, being more assertive with it. I'm like, hey, I can do that too and see what happens. Like, I don't care, if the backlash happens to me because I'm a guy. Like, no, I will like mess around with people. Like I will mess around with like the grocery store and see, prod for reactions. Because like, I feel like it's a lot more rewarding or fulfilling to get the raw kind of thing, to push my enemy.
I feel like ENFPs prod for reactions so much.
But we don't show it because no one catches us, because we're ENFPs. You couldn't possibly be this person. And it's like...
Is that, and we've sort of talked about this before, but is that the way that you use demonstrative FE?
Yeah, we play with feelings until we realize it's real and we want to get away from it. Like we'll be like, oh, let's play with the mood of it. Let's make everybody uncomfortable. But until we actually hurt somebody with that, we'll realize, oh, I didn't mean it. Like, oh no, like that's not really the point. Like we can't, swing it back to normal. We'll like withdraw from like ghosting has been such a common trait of young ENFPs.
Oh my God, yeah.
They'll be like, oh, it's uncomfortable. I hurt your feelings. Therefore, bye. See you for
like
3 months.
People, I feel like it's kind of an ENFP thing to like have a very obvious sort of like subtweet or like shade. Like it could be a subtweet or it could be in real life shade.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's obvious. And if you're an NFJ, you probably see through it.
Yeah. You gotta keep your NFJs close. Y'all's read us so good.
And then they're like, oh no, who, me? No.
But it's so funny because like other people are like, oh, he couldn't possibly be this kind of person. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I'll like DM you one day. I'd be like, no, I did mean it, but they took it as a joke.
Well, why do you think that people think that about ENFPs? That, oh, they couldn't possibly be this sort of person?
Well, going into maybe applying that, like, I guess the binary thing on us, we just look like jokesters. Like we don't look like we take life really seriously. But the funny thing is I think it's more the ENTP who don't take life that seriously. Whereas for us, we only look it, but we do take life very seriously.
Oh,
like
yeah.
we're really sensitive in that sense. And like we can probably, like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of ENFPs would just be like, yeah, I can look tough and I can make it happen. But inside we'll like close the doors and we'll be like, oh, the reality is exhausting. like, oh man, we went for it. Like, this is so hard.
Yeah. I mean, because deltas are serious. Like, is that what it's called? Serious versus merry, or?
Probably.
I
heard,
remember
that we kind of
dichotomy.
treat. I have to read up into it again, but yeah, we do. I think I skimmed over that. I need to integrate to 5, Megan. It's hard.
I feel like I'm very much enjoying integrating to 4 because I'm realizing that by acting like a 4, you can weed people out so that they won't abandon you.
Oh, what is that like? What is that like? Because like,
problem of being a 2 is if you want everyone to love you, nobody's going to love you. But if you act like fucking like, I don't even know. 4?
But my FI is so in denial. Like, I'm in denial of all my feelings until it's probably too late. Like,
yeah, can't relate.
So yeah, it's just an idea that I like threw in there. I've just been catching it a little too much because I feel like a lot of ENFP guys are just a lot more passive. Like we're not really the type to assert ourselves unless maybe that there's an 8 wing in there, like if there's an 8 fix or something to give us assertion. And I'm discussing Enneagram, like trying to synthesize that into the mix because I'm trying to find the wording to be able to convey what I'm noticing, like the pattern that I'm seeing with a lot of us. But like I remember very way back, like a few years ago, there was like this ENFP guy who made a rant video about how he feels so unprepared for real life because he's trying to explain his pressure of being a man with all this example of people, like there's now this new wave of people trying to define masculinity, and then you have to take that into consideration as an NEDOM. You take in that perspective, and then you have to take in the perspective that you were taught, and you have to take in the perspective of this, and like it's just you have to, and like what do you do, right? Like how do you move around?
That honestly sounds terrifying. Like I'm so glad I don't use an E.
It's bad. Terrifying. Oh gosh, it's
but also
horrible.
NI is very terrifying too because you don't get to have fun with just relaxing for a
my INJ issue.
Like,
you know what? I think who did I tell this to? I said I even for my worst enemy, I would not wish them to have my thought process. Like I don't want them to have it because it's so crazy.
I'm realizing a theme right now of 3 ENFP males I know, and the 3 of them have a intense passion in art and are complete failures at it and drink a lot, smoke too much, don't do anything for it.
Oh, I
Those
wonder.
are just
Oh,
3 people
damn,
I
that's
know.
scary.
Those are just three
Like,
people I know. I'm not saying that that's an ENFP thing, but I'm just trying to think about the males I know versus the females.
yeah.
And I'm, these three in particular that I'm just thinking about, which is a small sample size for those playing along at home, they are so jovial and like need to make everyone happy and make everyone laugh when they're with them. But then I
Yeah.
just know that they have like a lot of demons that must keep them up at night, as far as,
Well, I've noticed
you know what
that
I mean?
ENFP, yeah, but I've noticed with ENFPs, like we need to embrace that side of us that we are scared of. Like we are like when we have TE, and TE is like our source of confidence. And without it, we just are just so focused on making other people feel good. And that's great. You know, you can go make people feel good, but there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, sometimes you do need to make a stand. Sometimes you do need to present yourself, you know, and get into a fight, you know, and push
Wait, so
yourself.
you mean to tell me that someone could be a people pleaser and you value FI?
Or not. I mean, I don't value people at all, so. I like to say that I'm a dark ENFP, so there's a reformed dark ENFP, because you know I've done some stuff in the past that's probably not that
A
great.
reformed dork. See.
But yeah, like I don't know, like it's like with me, it's like I see all these other guys. I'm like, guys, like seriously, all you got to do is really just look at them and be like, hey, you're in my way, like to finally push that kind of thinking.
You know something crazy though is I dated an ENFP guy for a year, and it was Crystal who convinced me to break up with him because I was considering it for so long. I just didn't want to, or I didn't know how, and I felt like I owed something to him.
Oh.
And I felt, I don't know how I felt, but he ended up telling me, because we used to fight a lot, because the thing with me is I sometimes look back at my past and feel like maybe I settled or something in relationships. But every time something was bad, I would complain and nag and fight. And I would be like, how dare you not love me? Blah, blah, blah. Like I argued all the time. But the only reason why I stayed with this guy for so long is because he would apologize and he would own up to it, but he wouldn't change. He would say, oh yeah, I know I suck. He would be like, you're right. Like, I know I suck. Like, and I was sort of manipulated by that behavior and thinking, oh, he does care, because I could tell he cared, but that didn't mean anything.
No, it was very just arrested thinking. Like he just, you know, is probably afraid to make that change in his life.
Like
but
he was like a 2 in Graves Slump.
Like, oh my,
but
that's so low.
Maybe not, but he's not like that now. But anyway, he's thus thanked me for breaking up with him and stuff, and like has told me, because I've even said like, oh, like, I'm sorry, I was probably really like hard on you. Like if I was gonna be so critical, I probably should have just left or something, like, because I was so critical. Like I'm sure he hated my TI because I was like nag
about it. Yeah, but he didn't say anything about it. He probably, I feel like if he just communicated, it would have been like, oh, how about let's actually discuss without using too much nagging. Like let's actually just sit down and actually have that conversation.
Yeah,
even if
you
it's
not want to have that. But
well,
anyway, even to
you
point,
though, Megan, like that was me before too. Like the reason why my relationship with another, like the INTJ, didn't last long because I was doing the exact same tactics. Like I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm like it's dumb person, or I'm sorry.
I would
I'm
like see I would see my ex-boyfriend like drunk on the street and like not know where he was, and then I would be like, man, I have to now take you home so that you're safe. Like it was bad. It was not good. Like, but I kept forgiving. I just kept forgiving over and over.
You are too kind though.
Oh yeah, I know. I would just keep forgiving and be like, whatever. But I guess the interesting part that I was just trying to add to your theory is more so that he's told me now that me doing that like pushed him into like realizing a lot of things. Like,
yeah, I think we get comfortable. Like I think for ENFPs, for the guys, we could be comfortable getting what we want by being that weirdly passive, but that's not really the right way. It's not the right way at all. We eventually have to do something because you can't always rely on people. That way, you still have to like stand up for yourself and make something of yourself. I mean, in Graves theory, you have to go through your level 3. You know, you have to fight and be a rebel and then find yourself. Like, Yeah, I don't know. Like it's I get kind of protective of young ENFPs when I see them because they look like they're so lost, and I can see them playing the mind games. And I'm like, don't do the mind games. That's not smart. Like that's not wise. You'll learn in such a hard way that this is not going to benefit you in the future.
Well, even like my cousin right now, who's a male ENFP, just had a baby, and he wants to do art, and I'm like, I don't want him to be like, well, I have a baby now, I have to not do my art, I have to find something else. Like I know he's going to. I mean, I hope he still pursues his drawing. Like, but I can very much see him just slipping into, I have a baby I have to take care of. I can't do that.
I think that's probably
it doesn't have to be either or.
Well, yeah, I think that's why I have that mentality where I cannot have such a big life change happen to me just yet until I've made sure. Because
that's why, because
I have to do the SI thing first now, and I think that's probably my parents' influence on me.
That's
if I don't do the SI thing, because like I don't want to have to deal with this decision later on where I'm like, I'm in a relationship and then I'm lost. You know, like I want to do something, but I need to support this person because what if she calls in sick, you know, and I have to deal with that and I can't support them because I'm begging for change, drawing people's faces at a park or something, which is like, I don't mind. It sounds like a fun thing to do, but fun and actual achieving isn't the same thing. You know, like what is fun doesn't always translate that way. So yeah, I mean, it's
so what
something.
advice do you have for ENFP males?
I would say embrace the TE, embrace the uncomfortability that comes with, you know, ruffling a few feathers.
What's an example of that?
Because we not like to voice out our opinions. We don't like to voice out because we also have polar TI, so we don't really like, you know, we don't think that what we're explaining maybe doesn't come off like it makes sense to other people. So we're really insecure about that. Mm-hmm. But overdo your reading. Like, you know, we are any DOMs. Like we are consumers by default. Like if we already have cursed with our function, we might as well use it to the best of our ability.
I've noticed that every time I'm insecure about my TI and I'm like, oh, I don't know if that made sense, you compared to other people are extremely reassuring, like, oh no, it made sense. Because
let's not talk about another 2 hours of it.
Wait, is that it?
The truth comes out. No, it's not that. It's just that like
it's okay if it is. Tell me.
It does make sense though. Like I will know. I'm being honest. It does make sense.
My theory was that maybe
I missed the joke there though.
oh no, I heard the joke, but my theory was also that maybe you had empathy for people feeling like you had like a specific empathy for people feeling like they don't make sense because of your polar TI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I get sensitive to it. Although I'm not. Apparently, a lot of people have said that I'm not like reactive when I'm called out on my TI, like my lack of it. Like I don't mind if people think I'm stupid. You know, it doesn't really matter to me that much.
A lot of ENFPs aren't that way.
Yeah, I prefer. It's fine if you see me as such a way because it's not really your life to dictate mine. I'm already making money and I'm making all kinds of stuff with my life. You know, you just sit there with your bag of chips and then like, you know, telling me I'm
care if people think I'm stupid.
I think for me, it's like, I care if you, sorry, I guess, I don't know. I'm just evil like that. Cause like, I probably don't care. Maybe I should care.
No, you shouldn't. You don't want to be an FE Dom and worry about things that really are pointless.
I think
it's just letting other people take your energy away from you if you worry too much about that.
I think I'm more concerned is if you shut me down. I think like if whatever I want to pursue is shut down. Like I think I had that issue with my parents a lot. They would like every new path I tried to take, it was always like, no, you know, ancestor told you it wasn't true, so don't do it. So like, you know how Filipinos are always taught like culturally, it's like be a nurse, be a mailman, be like, it's like a recurring joke with our culture that's like everybody is a nurse. Like you must, like I have family members where they've all either been in call centers, like because that was your only opportunity. And like even now, like in the vicinity where I was, even if we're all Filipino in this community that I live in, the majority of the people would take admin assistant. You know, they would just rather like work as a 8 to 4 job, you know, pushing pencils and like all that stuff. And I was like, okay, that's cute. Like I could do it. I can totally make it happen. Like, you know, SI stuff, let's make it happen. But I'm gonna kill myself if I like if this continues. Because what if that's not for me? Like what if that doesn't, you know, what if that's not really the way
You
it's
seem
supposed to be?
you seem to be concerned with if people can stop you or not. Like, or like I remember was complaining to you about something that was bothering me, and you were like, well, I don't have time to worry about things like that because I'm busy. And I was like, I'm busy too. That's the problem. Like, I need to stop worrying because I'm busy and I need to get things done.
Oh, I guess I'm busy to not think about it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm busy, and so I need to stop thinking about it so I can get things done. And it's interesting because TE seems to be very good at executing certain things. Because even when I was complaining about something to Crystal, and she was saying something like, "Oh, whenever I'm really tired or overwhelmed, it doesn't stop me from getting the things done that need to get done. It only stops me from like fun or like other things like that." But I'm more concerned with getting the things done that need to get done. And things can sort of stop me in my tracks and make me think too hard, like FENTI, like just too much. Like, but yeah.
I mean, I have to say, like, part of it is also I'm a 7 core, right, in Enneagram. So, like, negative feelings, like, related to, like, stress, like, sadness, loneliness, I don't feel those things. Or I claim I don't feel those things. I claim that I don't have to worry about dealing with, you know, guilt and I don't want to deal with that kind of emotion. The thing is, it's not because I can't feel them. It's I don't want to deal with it. So when I feel it, it's, like, there, and I'm like, nope, we're not doing this. We're doing something else. And it's a constant chase of like you know, exploiting vices or exploiting people or exploiting activities as a way to dodge and never really face those, even though the truth is I should be facing those things and taking
but
it.
at the same time, if you focus on it too much, it can cause it to grow unnecessarily. And so part of that could be good.
Well, I induced my FI because I think with me, it's like I like to think that, or not like to think, but I've noticed or felt that maybe my FI is a little repressed compared to other ENFPs. Like I actually envy INFPs because I feel like they're so good knowing what they want. And they're so smart,
that's very true.
engaging, like, you know, knowing, oh, I don't like this person and they're right. Like they get it right on the first hit. And I'm like, how do you do that? How can you focus your FI in such a way that I can't seem to access? So
I think the reason why FI users are so good at knowing if they like someone is because they know who they are. And if you don't align with that, then they just don't like you.
Well, that's actually I like that because I learned this from surprisingly from a community episode. I believe he's an NTP, I think, but I really appreciated what he said. Abed, he was like, changing for other people isn't hard when you know yourself. So like with me, I don't feel a need or a desire to lose a piece of me when I get along with people or make friends anymore, because I don't worry of losing my identity. My identity is mine. No one can take that from me. But at the same time, you know, if someone asks me, hey, could you stop, you know, rubbing your nose like this? Or maybe it's annoying to watch. Okay, fine. Like I won't do it. Like it's not a big deal for me because that's a small thing compared to a bigger valuable friendship I could have had with this person. You know, if someone tells me you're brushing wrong, I'm not going to take it as an offense. I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll fix it. That's not a big deal. At the same time, it's like free game for me to criticize that person too, because I can say things about my preference because I know who I am. Be like, I think chewing gum is nasty for you. Probably shouldn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
and I don't think FI is like this magic function that can tell someone's character. But because I think a lot of that's relative. I mean, that's why FI is a subjective function. Not everyone is going to get along, but FI knows if you will get along with you, if someone will get along with you, like, so it's not. And I mean, a lot of FPs might then have that to some sort of TE. They are objectively a bad person, which I don't ever like to do, even if sometimes it's accurate.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't really think we're literally being objective in that sense. We are stating it to sound objective, but I mean the whole source of it is an FI motivation, right? The whole thing
is it almost like TE that you're telling yourself as like, this is just my rule of thumb? Or
because we don't really TI it, right? We don't really look at that information and like, you know, refine it to some extent, because like for us it's like protecting our FI to some some extent, because we don't gauge how we're connected to you. We're gauging and how we're disconnected to you, like what makes me different from the other person. So like I meet a person for the first time and I'll just get a vibe that something's wrong, and then I can make it sound, I'll start like, you know, vomiting details maybe that would help my case per se, like explain why I think that person is wrong. But over time it really is just the motivation in me going like, I just get a feeling that I don't like this person.
Yeah, and I guess I just want to validate that what you're saying is completely valid, but it's also completely subjective.
It's so
It doesn't
I
say
would love to be able
anything.
to map it out though, and
It doesn't say anything about the other person. And I think
no, it doesn't.
all P's are like this to an extent, where you know your feeling. And I mean, TPs, they know their system of thought or like their principles. And if they see someone going against, then that's like a red flag for you. But I mean, it doesn't mean anything really. It only means something as far as it's going to direct what you do in your life.
It's not applicable. It's not a universal method, right? It's not meant to be either. It's completely personal.
And I think it's really unhealthy when P's that have like a TI or FI like vibe about someone, and then they like try and use their like bad extrovert judging to try and get everyone on board.
Ooh, I have seen those. Yes.
Just like your opinion or like your feeling.
Did I tell you that story? There was an INFP who really wanted to be an INFJ, and then like
no.
The FI is just too obvious. Like you can totally tell that everything he explains. Like he says, I can empathize with people's emotions. I'm like, great.
So can
so is any human being.
Yeah.
Like empathy is, no one has a monopoly on empathy.
Yeah, really.
For that. And he's like, oh, I must really be an INFJ. And I'm like, no. And then like, since we said no and we expressed our reasoning why we didn't think so, like I would welcome him to the NFP land, you know, come over here. Like no one's complaining here. But he decided instead that he was going to try to convince, you know, a whole bunch of other people by expressing himself in such a way that makes him sound. And then we're like, just try to get everybody on board with it. And we're like, why are you causing this unnecessary
something only an NFP would do?
Right. Like you won't even, and the thing is, you won't even discuss it like in mail, by the way, too. Or maybe just maybe if that is significant. He'll never discuss it to you in person. Like he won't ever do that. He won't engage with you in a conversation directly because he knows he'll lose. So he'll try to win via like a really the most back alley type of way, because it's the only way he knows is best.
I just know, I guess I think that if anyone has sort of a subjective judgment of a person, then that is 1,000% accurate for you. Is all. And maybe I'm just reiterating it over and over because I think that I need to think about that more.
You know what's scary though is I personally don't trust my FI like at all. Like I don't trust that it's giving me test results online as like a TJ, because like my like low tier S like FI. And
Crystal's dealt with that too,
right? And yeah, I feel like a lot of ENFP as they get older, they start testing as high TE and stuff, even though we're not. And not that I actually want to be a TJ, I don't. But like I don't know what it is with me, at least. Like I don't like
that. Could be part of being a male. I mean, even though I said that Crystal has as well.
Yeah, it could be because of we're being told not to express those kinds of maybe thought processes.
And I also think that at this stage of life, when you're really trying to establish a career and like get your finances in order, you might feel like TE makes more sense. Like,
yeah, no, I do. NE plus TE equals no rest. So no introspecting. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I guess the little thing to say with it is like, you know, the craziest thing where Kat, you know, has mentioned, like when I do get the vibes, it's like, it's not just it's right, it's like creepishly right. And I'm so shocked because I can't read it, I can't track it, I can't trust it. So because I cannot replicate the vibe in some sort of setting that's I can work with, maybe in a logical setting, and I can't do that, I can't use it then. My TE will refuse to acknowledge
you can
FI.
still use it.
I could still use it, but
you'll have to see. I think by trusting your FI, then you'll have to see that it works, and then after a few tries, you'll see it works, and then you'll trust it.
I mean, other ENFPs on Twitter are like, yeah, trust your FI. It's always like, it's gotten us in good places. And I'm like, I wish I could agree.
Yeah.
You know, like
Try
I
it.
really wish. I feel like I would, you know, it's a perspective I have to learn to open myself to. Who knows? Maybe that's why I'm closed. You know, I have a closed mentality with that. Maybe that's
Well,
one
yeah,
of
I
my
think
aspects.
all extroverts sort of have this thing where we see this like spectrum, this wide spectrum of whatever our Dom function is. And then as we get a little older, our auxiliary function is supposed to help us zone in on something.
Well, I was told to deny mine, actually. I was
Yeah.
completely rejected because it was, one, it wasn't useful. Plus, the only closest FI I had was my dad, but his was tertiary FI, and it just came off really awkward. You know, he'll be like, I don't like this. And I'd be like, where'd that come from?
Yeah. And like that's just not the same energy as what you would want. But like for me with my NI, it's really like I like feel pulled to be everything to everyone, but I need to really zone in on my path and make sure that I'm only taking action towards my path and not getting distracted by like the FE. Like even though my NI is like really good or whatever, it's not the same as like the way an INJ would. And so, yeah, it makes sense that you would be like jealous of an INFP in that way because they do know what they want and you see the possibilities and you now have to use your FI to choose like what you want and trust what you want and then go with that.
And it's weird. I don't think it's easy for me to suddenly trust my preferences. I feel like my preferences are useless, or like my preferences are just my own, so therefore it shouldn't affect other people.
Well, just because they're subjective, that doesn't mean that it's not completely going to work for you all the time.
Yeah, and the thing is too, the funny thing about
It's
it is
still consistent.
it is consistent, but I'm not like hating on it because I know when I'm alone in the house, my preferences are free to roam wherever. Like I can watch whatever I want. I can play whatever I want. I can eat whatever
Are
I
you
want.
afraid of your preferences changing over time?
No. I feel like my preferences don't really stick the way either. It's just that I just don't feel the need to express my preferences to other people because I don't really care
You should
what.
express it through action with TE
Yeah,
by
and I
making it
definitely
happen.
do. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it'd be really interesting to have discussions with like other folks um on my preferences because it's something I'm like chose to suppress or repress a lot. Because I don't know, I've never really thought that there was value in it. And that's probably me because like my three numbers in the tri type kind of reject values and emotions. Like I'm very like I seek action, I seek opportunities, and I like to withdraw from negative emotion. So it's like, you know, and I like to present myself as an image of that I got everything figured out, or I, you know, that I'm successful in some way, even though in reality I'm probably not. You know, and like we're all on the same boat, like we're all like struggling on the same planet. But you know, I don't really, and then at the same time, I don't want to stand out with the rest of the other folks either. I just want to like blend in too because I'd rather I blend in and I can do my own like stuff alone and without somebody bothering me.
Yeah. So I have to wrap up soon because I need to call back a friend.
Yeah,
Really
we talk a lot.
Oh no, but I wanted to say something though to that, and I feel like we can explore that more because what you're saying does not sound very stereotypical NE, or at least not what NE users want you to think. Like, did you just say that you want to be like everyone else, or like did you like? It's almost like you're limiting yourself in a little bit.
Not really, because like again with what Abid said, like if I already know who I am, I don't need to preach it, right? So I can be whatever I need to be for other people. Like I've mentioned when I first entered typology servers in Discord, the first thing I said that caught people off guard in a sense was like, you don't sound like a rainbow manic pixie ENFP. And I'm like, I don't need to. If you appreciate the rainbow side, then you'll hear the rainbow side. But if you want to hear something from me that, you know, that isn't, you want to hear it something more clearly, then I will change what I say so that I can get my message across.
Yeah, and I was sort of playing devil's advocate with that, like, you know.
Yeah. Hey, at least get me to, you know, explain a process, right? And then like other people to hear it.
Do you think that would you or Kat be okay with plugging the Discord? Do you think?
I think so. That'll be kind of interesting. Like people get to, I'm a lot wilder, I would say.
Do you want to sort of say what it is really quick?
So I belong to a typology server called Transcendence, and I manage it with Kat, another ENFJ, and a few other folks of different types. We like to gather a bunch of them. A lot of our goals in that server involves us learning different types of systems. You know, there is an MBTI like tagging system in there. We also talk about Enneagram. We talk about socionics a lot. Personally, for my own goal too, like I'm focusing a lot on like Graves theory, like Greek god archetypal, you know, concepts as well. Like, you know, things like that. I know Kat mentions astrology was one of the channels we had as well. Like things
just
like
want to let people know, because if someone got to the end of this and watched us talk this long, chances are they're pretty cool.
Endured to the very end. For the person who's made it this far, I welcome me. Also, thank you for bearing with me. I feel like y'all can like take Megan, but I'm like kind of hard to digest, I guess, because
no, I don't think you're any harder to digest than me. It just depends. It's all relative. It depends on who's listening.
Oh, that's true.
Wait, was that NI or something?
I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'll take it. Okay, and
trust me, I feel like I have more people that watch my videos that would relate to you better than me. Like, I mean, I've had people say, I heard someone commented referring to Crystal, this chick makes the other chick more easy to digest or something. Oh. Like talking about saying Crystal was easier to digest than me. Which is fine. I mean, honestly, think about it. There's so many NFPs into this stuff. And I made this because, okay, when we were talking earlier about when you've exhausted the opportunity or when you've exhausted the NE possibilities and you look at what's there and then you forge your own path, I feel like my NI saw there weren't that many ENFJs talking about stuff. And that's what really propelled me, because I was like, oh, well, there's a gap here. Someone needs to do it. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't other ENFJs here, but I noticed a huge gap that people ENFJs weren't talking about themselves.
You take it. Yeah, I totally agree.
So that's sort of what motivated me there. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of amazing like NFPs on here that like will come watch me and then like learn about what being an NFJ is like, that they're probably going to be refreshed to find someone that they can relate to. So
I was so happy that I got to talk to an INTP who told me that my view on NE was something she's been mulling over for like months. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm not alone. And that's what I like. Like I don't like being alone in thought. And I mean, maybe because a lot of the ENFPs on the internet tends to be fours, you know, either fours or nines and twos, which are more, you know, kind of putting themselves out there. And I'm not one of those people. Like I'm more of it's either I'm in the background, partying it out, getting hammered. Hopefully not, but like, you know, that's like.
I actually have an ENFP2 life coach.
Oh yeah. Oh, well then. twos are interesting to talk to. Let's put it this way. Like you're a two, but ENFP2s.
She's an older woman, and so she's sort of got her shit together at this point.
Thank goodness. I love it when a 40-year-old ENFP told me, she's like, it does get easier when you get to this point. And I was like, thank goodness. Like I feel
like because she's like in her early 70s or like late 60s. I can't remember, but I feel like old ENFP women are like these wise sages that like they're it's finally
made sense.
Finally, everything makes sense.
I can finally make peace with my annoying SI.
Well, I wonder though if just like, because all ENFP, and I have to go, this is like the last thing I'll say, like all ENFPs really want this sort of like independence, but like they also want their needs met. So when you're a kid, you have maybe your needs met depending on your situation.
On how simple it could be, yeah.
But then you're like mad that you aren't meeting your own needs. But then like by the time you're an old person, you probably have a savings account. I don't know. Maybe you've got your shit together and you have sort of a peace that you've, you know.
Probably investing your money into things. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it was so great to have you on my channel. Thank you everyone for watching. Is there any last final words, Nate?
No. We get to that point with the ending and you're like, oh, and then I completely collapse with I do have evidence to support my, you know, because I maybe don't come off very wild right now. And I'm like so conscious of how my NE comes out to people.
Yeah, that's something that I'm not conscious of, that Crystal has told me that I need to be more conscious of how people might read me.
Really? Okay, because like with me,
Yeah.
I just want to say, and just for my last little thing, like I do also have like YouTube videos where not as a content creator, but as evidence. Like I kind of put them as an exhibition thing. If you want to watch a person, like an any user, waste time on on a personality test that's multiple choice, it's up there. It's
I will link your channel as well.
it's so embarrassing, but it's there. Like that's NE for you. Like what do you do when you have that kind of function? Like you have to record
You
it and
gotta
then
work
like
it.
laugh at yourself. You gotta work it. You gotta laugh at yourself because this is life, right? It's
Yeah.
unforgiving, but it's also fun. So
This is life.
anyways,
Well,
thank you,
some
Megan.
final last words. If you made it through this is life. That's all there
This
is
is
to know.
life. Yeah, that's our intuitive advice.
Yeah. All right. All right. Thanks for watching.